Thanks so much. It's really good to be here. I so first decided to run for office because, as an attorney, part of the work I did as a law student, and then even some of the pro bono work I did was in the housing space. So I was really concerned about kind of the supports that tenants and landlords and the housing court system were getting from our local government as well as our state government. And so one of the gaps that people said that was there was in the state government. And so for me, I saw an opportunity to say, this is a place where we can make things better and work in partnership with different local organizations and local government entities. So that was my main reason for deciding to put my name in the ring. The district covers all of downtown Minneapolis and parts of North Minneapolis. And I would say we are definitely like a microcosm of all of Minnesota. We have a diverse group of people, both in terms of racial demographics, economic background, and educational background. And so one of the things I really love about my district is it's so vibrant. You can move from a street festival on Broadway Ave to wonderful like small businesses that are up there. You then get all the stadiums, so then you can go to a Twins game or a Vikings game. There's also all the arts, both across Northside and in downtown. So anywhere you'll see people making music, dancing, doing some plays. And we also just have, again, a lot of parks that are also, well, throughout across Minnesota, but also even in this district. So I really enjoy it. I think it's a great place to live, and I'm really glad to be able to represent the people who live in what is currently 59B. Well, first of all, Black history is American history and should be celebrated all day, every day. But I really am looking forward to this Black History Month to really focus on Black joy and Black celebration. I think for too much time, the story of Black Americans is kind of told through the lens of struggle. And while, yes, that's real and all of those things happen, it's also important that we recognize that Black Americans' contribution only isn't in the struggle for civil rights and for equity and equality, but also that we are joyful and we have fun and we have much to contribute, again, to the arts, to music, to innovation, medicine, law, whatever, you name it. And so I'm just really looking forward this year to really highlight all the showcases of joy within the Black community. I think where we're trying to find it right now is, in our community spaces that we're building, right? Especially after a tragic event, you'll find people who come and they're bringing food, which food is always great, a huge comfort. And then we also have a huge diaspora within the Black community, so you can get food from the Caribbean, from West Africa, from East Africa, and even just traditional Black American foods as well. So all of it is great. I think lots of music. One of the things that I recently watched a couple weeks ago was the Summer of Soul documentary done by Questlove, which really just talked about a music festival in Harlem in 1969 that ran for weeks. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. So many artists that we now love and revere today were actually just up and coming back in 1969. So it's actually that's pretty cool. And yeah, I think just, you just find it in places where, Black people get together and we laugh and we hold each other up, and it's just a beautiful thing. So my parents moved to Minnesota in the 1970s, 1980s. They both immigrated here from Nigeria, and they both came to the University of Minnesota. They met at the University of Minnesota and had me and my brothers, and we grew up in St. Paul. My dad is a priest in the Episcopal Church, and my mom was a librarian for a long time. She's retired now. And, it was just really kind of cool growing up in that space. We got to move around a lot because of my dad's job. And we got to have a lot of connections with both the diaspora in terms of the West African community, specifically the Nigerian community, and also our Black American communities where we lived, especially when we lived in Chicago. Lived in Southern Virginia, and then now me coming back to Minnesota as well. And then I've lived in lots of more Black cities like DC and New York to an extent too. It's much colder for one.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think the differences are so one thing I like really about living in Minneapolis and living in my district is downtown Minneapolis is a neighborhood. Unlike other downtowns that I've been in, especially on the East Coast, those cities, their downtowns clear out at 5 o'clock. It's a ghost town. No one's outside. There's hardly any activities happening because all the activities happen in other parts of town. But here in Minneapolis, a lot of things, activities, events are centralized in downtown Minneapolis, as well as residential buildings, and it has a very neighborhoody feel. So even before the pandemic, you would see people out and about at all times. And even now, as we're still dealing with the pandemic, more people are starting to move around. There's still small businesses that are even opening up. And so there's different options and opportunities for at least people to do takeout. I really hope that I'm remembered as someone who helped push the ball and built that coalition around our housing needs in this state. I think for too long, many people just say, of course, housing is a human right, but we haven't really done much behind it. And so I'm really hoping that kind of the legacy I can leave behind is, increased funding towards public housing to make sure everyone can have a place to sleep, making sure that we're holding our landlords accountable when they don't keep up their end of the bargain of keeping a place habitable. And then, of course, expanding access to capital so more people can own a home if that's what they want to do. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's always surprising to people that comes up is, unfortunately, Minnesota tends to be one of the worst places to live in the United States if you're a Black person. And that's really hard to believe because we have so many awesome amenities. We do have high standards of education here. We've got really good jobs here. They pay well. You can easily run into millionaires in Minnesota. And then we also have like great parks and all of these natural wonders, right? But it's really hard to access that for Black Minnesotans. And I think part of that is because, again, the histories of redlining that keep people mostly in apartments and outside of homes. The fact that we don't do right by a lot of our tenants in terms of upkeep of those homes. The disparities in our education system are huge. And again, that goes back to kind of like zip code and not funding our public school systems the way we should. And that ends up leaving a lot of Black Minnesotans behind. It's really hard for Black Minnesotans to get access to capital to build their businesses or own a home. And I think it's just really hard for there isn't necessarily always a lot of support for the Black community when they're trying to do something new. So that's something I think that doesn't get talked about a lot, or if it does get talked about, it's sort of talked about in the context of like the Great Minnesota Paradox. And so one thing that I hope that we can continue to do is move past the recognition of the problem and towards finally solving it.